2-503 of the code. Mr. Nichols?
Good afternoon, members of the board. It's been a while since I got the opportunity to present for you. And I'm presenting today on the request for an extension from a couple of candidates who failed to file either their certificate of candidate qualification or their statement of economic interest on time with the department. The deadline for that filing was 5 o'clock on March 25th. The background here is that candidates do have to file those two documents in order to qualify to be on the ballot for the primary, and that the board does have authority under 503 to grant an extension if candidates fail to file one or both of those documents. It's important to note that if an extension is granted, it's not just granted for those who requested it. It would be good for any potential candidate who didn't file those documents, and the Department of Elections would make notice to all relevant candidates in that case. At this point, we do have the two specific requests for an extension, and I've included both of those letters requesting that in the board documents.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Do the members have any questions of Mr. Nichols?
Are the candidates on the line by chance?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Nichols, could you briefly share with us, so everybody is on the same page, where these races are and who these people are? I know we have them in our documents, but it might be just worth just so everybody starts from the same place.
Sure. The two specific requests that we have come from the 93rd District for Jordan Gray. And the other one is from Julia Perry, and that's the 86th District. I'm sorry, Michael Jones in the 69th. I apologize. No, Julia Perry. Sorry, I've got a couple of different documents going at the same time, and I'm switching back and forth, and it's created a problem for me in keeping my eyes in the right spot.
All right. Can staff tell us if members of the public wish to be heard on this agenda item?
Yes, Chairman Brink. I have David Paula for Mike Jones.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you all about this request for extension. First, I'd just like to talk a little bit about the timeline of how everything happened, and then some of my experiences in the past with general registrars and filing these pieces of documentation. So back in November, December, I started reviewing the candidate bulletins to look at how to properly file for candidates. And at that point in time, there was no bulletin for the House of Delegates. So I started working off some of the other materials, one of which is filing for local office, which is how I've spent the primary, most of the time when I've been filing for candidates in the past. Obviously, as time went on, the other bulletin came out and we found out the timeline between March 8th and March 25th. Early on, before I was helping Mr. Jones with his campaign, he went to the general registrar in Richmond to file the certificate of candidate qualifications and the statement of economic interest. At that time, since the window of filing had changed, he was told to come back in March once the filing would be acceptable for that position. Obviously, we all know the General Assembly was playing around with possibly moving the primary date and ultimately even up until right at the end of February when we found out that it would indeed be happening in June. And so as soon as we could, on March 8th, we filed those two pieces with the general registrar. And my past experience with registrars across the Commonwealth has been that when you file those pieces with your registrar, you know, that they will be forwarded on to the Department of Elections. So it was my understanding that that would happen this time, and I said it, and we thought that we had done everything properly. Then when the 527 was filed for this race in Richmond City, we were made aware that the certificate of candidate qualifications and statement of economic interest were not on file with the Department of Elections. I know in the past with general registrars, they've been contacted by elect in the lead up to the election to reach out to those registrars and say, hey, if you have these on file, make sure that you get them to us, or that they get them to us by 5 p.m. On the deadline day, which was March 25th this year. We had every reason to believe, because of my past experiences, and that we had filed everything correctly. In talking with the Department of Election staff, I have found out that obviously that is not the case, that we need to take it to the Department of Elections ourselves, and we can't rely on the General Registrar's Office to do that for us, and that the best practice should have been, at the time when we went in, to be told to take those forms and take them down to the Department of Elections and not to file them with the registrar. Since we had filed them with the registrar, we didn't have the originals anyway. They did. So we couldn't have taken them to the Department of Elections if we wanted to, since they were on file with the general registrar. And that concludes my testimony. We tried to do things the way that we thought that we should, the way that other documentation had shown earlier, the way that I had successfully done it for state and local offices before, obviously with other registrars. I've spoken with the general registrar. I believe that she has sent an email to you, Chair Piper. We have someone here with us from the Richmond registrar's office to speak on this if necessary. And yeah, so due to past experiences and information, we thought that this would be acceptable and that they would go on to the Department of Elections.
Thank you, Mr. Paula. Are there additional members of the public that wish to be heard?
That was all I had, Chairman Brink.
Mr. Chairman,
Dr. O'Bannon?
right. If I understand this correctly, we again have a case of bipartisan tardiness in that both parties are in the same boat here.
I believe that's correct.
And so I would ask the chairman, who has been pretty vocal about his stance on some of this, if he has the capability to have another little extension of kindness before we put the hammer down on this, or where he is at this point.
Well, the vice chair is correct that I've made my position pretty clear on this matter. The failure of candidates to comply with the statutory filing requirements places this board in a very unfair position. Earlier this year, I wrote to the chairs of both the Democratic Party of Virginia and the Republican Party of Virginia. I urged them to exert their best efforts to ensure that candidates would comply with the statutory filing deadlines. And at that time, I stressed that while the board had granted an extension of the filing deadline in the past, there was no assurance that it would do so in the future. So that's my personal position right now. Are there additional members of the public who wish to be heard?
Sorry, Chairman Brink, I actually have, oops,
I'm
Donald
sorry?
Gaines. Donald Gaines.